Live from the capital of Kenya, Nairobi, 22/2/22 is the day, that is the 22nd day of February, the year 2022. Good morning. This is KBC News Check. Glad you could make time. And of course, in News Check, we do have a take on the politics of the day that are shaping the country as we gear for the 2022 political scene. And to help us look at matters politics, I have a panel of very formidable tag team here, of which we will be talking about matters politics. And in the second hour, we are going to be looking at value addition. We are looking at making food affordable and also something that you can rake in something at the end of the day. My name is Njue, and Wangeshi will be a sign language interpreter for the show. Remember, you can be part of the show via all our social media spaces as we are live. Don't forget, we are also live on our KBC app and also on our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke. Well, enough said. A lot is happening in the political landscape, and that is what we are going to be talking about. And introducing my panelist, on my immediate left, we have Wycliffe Eshiwani. Wycliffe Eshiwani is a politician, and he will be gunning for the Nzoia Gubernatorial seat. He'll be telling us a little about that. And on my extreme left, we have Dr. Churchill Saboke, who is a political commentator, governance expert, and he is also a lecturer at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. Karibuni sana, gentlemen.
Asante sana. Asante.
Perhaps to start with you, Doc, looking at the political landscape, are we politicizing some things that we shouldn't? Of course, the politics have not officially been started or officially been launched by the IEBC, but we are seeing a lot of politics. Looking at what we had to hear yesterday by Kenya Kwanza and also by Azimio factions of government, talking about the national debt at 11 point something, others talking about, but perhaps we should first of all listen to what Kenya Kwanza and Azimio had to say about the cost of living in the country and also the ballooning national debt that really did make some fodder on social media. First things first, let's hear what Kenya Kwanza had to talk about when we talked about Kenya heading in the red zone when it comes to the debt ceiling.
The National Treasury, the public debt has grown sixfold to Kenya shillings 11.7 trillion. 8.2 trillion as direct public debt and 3.5 trillion of guaranteed commitments as of February 2022. The Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury should not sign any new loans, including floating sovereign bonds, during this transition period. We do not need a constitutional amendment to give more money to counties. The budget policy statement of 2022 has proposed to maintain the equitable share of the revenue going to counties at Kenya shillings 370 billion.
Wakati wanasema kwamba wanataka kuongeza hera za kuenda kule kwa mashinani, wanaongeza deni. Kwa sababu hawatuambii hizo fedha zitatoka wapi. Watakuwa wanaongeza deni. Upande mmoja wanasema kwamba hatutaki kuongeza deni kwa Wakenya, lakini upande ule mwingine wanaleta mabadiliko ambayo inaweza kuongeza deni ya taifa hili.
During his tenure as the Minister for Finance, is the first time that Kenyans recorded in our books, go to the books of Central Bank, uncontrolled overdraft, which Kenyans have never heard of 37 billion.
Well, that is something that is forming fodder for most of the political alignments in the country. But question is, Daktari, are we politicizing some things that we shouldn't? The national debt, according to the Central Bank, is around 8 trillion. Well, where are these other figures? Where are they getting these figures? And is it the right time to politicize something as pertinent as the national debt and the cost of living that is affecting all the Kenyans?
You know, thanks, Ben, for having me here. And I mean, these are not new things. In the, you know, when you're looking at the dynamics of politics and how to achieve political power, you use every instruments that are available. And the issues around politicization of issues that are pertinent to the people of Kenya is one of the instruments. You know, we know very well that there is hardship among people, and if a given political formation takes advantage of that to gain political capital, like what is currently being seen, I mean, it's their way of doing politics. But then it is, you know, when you look at it on the political, from a political perspective, it makes every sense that you got to look at the loopholes and magnify those loopholes to gain political advantage. But when you look at it structurally, in the best interest of the people and sustainably, then you realize that, you know, some of these sentiments that are being made on political platforms are mere hearsay. Because, you know, it's not the first time that, you know, when these budgets were being, when the loans and the debts were being taken, I mean, some of these politicians and some of these individuals were not, they were within the country. They held political positions. The question is, what did they do to ensure that these debts never ballooned? The other question that you might want to ask on the sustainable and on a structural perspective is, you know, it's one thing to attack an institution when you're outside. It's another thing to face the reality when you're inside. Are you getting? You know, when you attain power today, you might attack a given system for taking loans. Then when you get into that institution, you realize that it is those loans that are sustaining the system. I'm not saying that is the case scenario, but I'm just giving the structural understanding of how systems work. So, you know, on the political perspective, it makes every sense to politicize the pertinent issues for the sake of getting short-term political gains. But for sustainable government operations, it does not make sense. It does not make sense in the sense that some of you were once in government. What did you do to stop this? Some of you want to get to government. And if you win the election, are you sure you're still going to stick to the same sentiments that you are saying? Because those are totally two different things. Yes.
Indeed. And Eshiwani, you'll be seeking quite a seat, the gubernatorial seat. And looking at what we are witnessing in the political sphere, as Doc has put it, some of the people who are criticizing or who are mentioning or even politicizing the question of the national debt and the cost of living have been in that government for a while, and they haven't done anything to help out in the national debt. Is it a thin line that we are trying to cross here? We've had issues when you talk about politicians who have a loose tongue. Now we are seeing something that could cause some acrimony in the country, the national debt and the cost of living. We even witnessing a hashtag that has been trending for the last couple of days on lowering on the food prices. Is this something that we should be politicizing at this moment?
Actually, thank you very much for having me here. I want to say this, and it's very, very unfortunate. Laws are made in parliament, and most of these people that you're seeing now coming out to criticize, especially the heavy borrowing and the heavy debt of this country, have been in that same parliament. A few years ago, our debt ceiling was 7 trillion shillings. Parliament went and debated, because when they went to borrow money from the world market, they were asked to amend the laws. So they amended the laws to 9 trillion. So we had a ceiling of 9 trillion. When you hear the conversation that is happening with these other political formations at the moment, we are now talking about 11 trillion in terms of our debt. When did the law get amended from 9 trillion to 11 trillion? It means the same politicians who are making noise were in the same parliament that gave the current government the authority to borrow to 11 trillion. The unfortunate part is that when they come to the street and cry with the common man, this is the cry that the common man has. So somebody, as Doc has said, has just taken advantage of the cry that is in the general public and hyped it onto the platform of the politics. But to me, the thin line still lies with Parliament to put laws that are going to make sure this ceiling is not haphazardly revised without involving the stakeholders, and also whatever is borrowed for must be actually utilized, because the biggest problem we are encountering that has made us to be into this bigger hole, especially with the trend of high food prices, is that we don't borrow for development. We don't borrow for production. If you borrow for production, where the money is, where the salaries are, where the money is generated from, that is agriculture, manufacturing, you are able to repay your debt without actually having again to come into the local market to borrow. But these people are borrowing internationally, come raise taxes, meaning that they borrow also from the domestic markets. So people will end up crying, especially when you've not borrowed for production. So if you borrow for production, take the money to agriculture. Let Mwananchi use the money to do small production. Fund SMEs, fund small startup businesses. And that's why, as we come to this political space, we are coming to correct that. You borrow for production. Don't borrow to pay salaries. Don't borrow for expenditure.
For current expenditure.
You try not to do what is called current expenses with borrowed money, because commercial money is very expensive.
And Doc, perhaps to pick where Eshiwani has touched on, looking at this year, looking at the cost of living and the cost of the prices of food, or cooking oil, rice, unga, they're quite high. Looking at the year 2017, the country almost was polarized, the economy was polarized because of politics. The same way, it has become a cycle. Each and every year that we have politics and national elections, we experience quite a battered economy. How can we help Kenyans understand what happens when it comes to election and the cost of living as we are seeing it right now?
It's a pretty complex macro and microeconomics, because some of it are driven by interests that the key policy makers are interested in generating capital, for even funding some of these campaigns. And also you find that institutions are also interested, government is interested in funding some of its operations. And so you realize that the only point where they end up seeking to get money is to tax people more. And when you tax people more, the things balloon up. So it's a whole complex of economics, micro and macro, that end up making the cost of living goes high. And mainly the idea about we cannot refute the fact that there are personalities, influential personalities that generate election money from the public, all right? And especially from the key commodities. So some of those things, the moment, for example, you get 1 shilling from petrol, or 1 shilling from gas, or 1 shilling from the mafuta ya kupika, that 1 shilling, when you pull it up in the whole population, it becomes a lot of money. And it ends up, the impact is that all the other commodities that depend on it are going to be ballooned up as well. So you realize that one simple microeconomic policy ends up affecting all the other cost of commodities. And all these are driven by a political interest.
Okay, of course, we need to change all that, because we don't see developed countries' economy getting a bash like we see in most African countries each time there's an election cycle. And allow me, when we come back, we talk about the NDCs. We see ODM, Jubilee, UDA will also be having theirs a little bit later. And a lot is expected, and especially when you talk about the Sagana 3, or the third meeting that the president will be having with Jubilee delegates this week. That is something that we also form a lot of fodder when it comes to matters politics and see how the housekeeping will be. A lot of people have ditched the ruling party, Jubilee, and have headed elsewhere. But the president did say and did affirm that Jubilee Party is here to stay, and we've been working. Of course, we'll be talking about that. But joining us now is Andrew Nyangwasa. He's also a politician who will be vying for a seat in Kajiado North.
Yes.
Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
Looking at the political landscape and looking at the Jubilee Party, the president is expected, and it's something that is a lot of people are waiting for, because it will shape up the national politics and also give a way on how the Jubilee Party will manage its affairs. Of course, we know they are in talks with the ODM and Azimio as a general, so that they may make a formidable coalition in line and as they wait for the 2022 general politics. What do you make of the Sagana 3 that is expected to be led by none other than Jubilee Party leader, President Uhuru Kenyatta?
I think it is normal during this time we'll be able to see that kind of rearrangement, and definitely, you know, Jubilee, it's like it had actually died. I think they are trying to resurrect the Jubilee that is in leadership now. And for the president to go to Sagana 3, what we all know, is going to talk to his people. He's going to tell them that I'm still the president, I'm still the de facto leader from Central, and you are supposed to follow the line that I'm going to tell you that this is where we are. And I think definitely he's going to muscle the support from the Central Kenya, the larger Central Kenya, behind his preferred candidate. And as we all know, his preferred candidate is Honorable Raila Odinga, and in Azimio, that is. So we are going to see him try to pull the masses from the Central Kenya to rally behind Raila Odinga, which is normal and common in any campaign period like this one. Yes.
Eshiwani, you will be vying as an independent candidate for the Nzoia gubernatorial seat. Of course, we will be touching on that because the western side or western sphere of the country seem to be having a different kind of formations and alignments, so to speak. But looking at the president, a lot of people have said, Mr. President, you've done a good job. You've done 10 years. Just retire and manage the Jubilee affairs, but don't tell us which way we should. But he is the head of state. What do you make of the expected Sagana 3?
Very interesting question. Very interesting.
You are a political scientist, so yes. I'm quite sure you're going to get a good answer.
And basically, the head of state has his own constitutional rights. Number one, as a voter, he voted for himself as the president. So without a vote, he should not be talking. But considering he's a voter, he has his own interests and he has his own preference. The Sagana 3 to me is going to be a meeting just to quell his backyard. He's not having any interest in terms of running, but the way politics have shaped in this country, the head of state wants to remain relevant in Central Kenya beyond 2022 elections. And to me, for him to whip his party members to go to Sagana, there's only one thing that is going to happen there. He's going to tell them the secrets that have been said all along. You've had the Garissa MP saying that he'll pour the beans if he spills the beans. So what the president is doing, he's going back to the beans to his people. And these people are perceived to be members of preferably from his backyard. And with that spill, expect to see new formations after Sagana 3. So this Sagana 3 is basically meant to cement his leadership as the de facto leader of Central Kenya, and also considering politics has been made expensive by the current players, he's going to give them some assurance of where he's going to assist them when it comes to commercial purposes. And that's what is going to quell and calm the people back at Central Kenya.
Doc, from where you sit, it's quite a delicate balancing act for the president, looking at he is the party leader of Jubilee, and incidentally, his deputy, who is the deputy president, and the deputy party leader is also leading a different formation. Of course, there will be a lot of housekeeping. We are expected to see perhaps a new deputy party leader, because the Jubilee did announce that the head of state, even after the 2022 politics, he will still be the kingpin, and you still be the act, because a lot, as Andrew, a lot of politicians have left the ruling party in as to form a formation or and as
that we must admit, this analogy comes from every institution, right from the smallest institution, even as a family. When you are the head of the family, you understand the whole family, and you know who can do what and what button you can trigger to achieve what. And even when it comes to a point when you now want to give your will, and I say that you have this kind of maybe this plot or this shamba that you say, this one I need to give to this son, this one I need to give to this daughter, and you make that kind of preference not because of any mischief on any of them, but because you understand their strengths. You've lived with them. Now broaden that into a bigger institution, in a corporate, and embolden it into the whole country. When you are the president of the republic, you are the vision bearer of that country. You understand that country, in as much as interests are always driving the politics of the country. You understand the micro interest of that country, and you know how best they can be sorted. And so with that understanding, it will be unfair to claim that somebody who has led the country for 10 years should sit back and wait what he, in his understanding, he thinks is the direction that a country should go. And when you look at the paradigms of leadership, the success of a leader is defined by his successor. If you do not have a successor, or if you are not able to put a good successor in any leadership, you have failed as a leader. So in making the president and purporting that the president should not be part and parcel in influencing who takes up from him, it's just pure blackmail to make him become a failed president. And he should not fail. He should not fall for that. You know what? Today I would advise the president to take a political direction even if he's failing for it.
Be a tall order, and especially in the central Kenya.
Because you know what? It would rather be he speaks and tells the Mount Kenya region that, you know what, this is the direction to follow. And then the Mount Kenya people fail to take that direction. Years down the line, if something happens, he will stand tall in the pulpit and say, my people, I told you. It is different from when he fails to take the leadership and give his people direction, and then something happens later on. He cannot stand on a platform and say anything. So right now, it is the best risk for the president is to take the political decision that he feels right for Kenya. And let me tell you something. As a leader, your role is not to make people go where they want. Otherwise, you're not a leader.
Correct.
Your role is to take people where they should go, even if they don't want to go there. And that is what makes great leaders.
And Nyangwasa, you'll be vying on a Kenya Kwanza ticket, and a lot of the politicians in the Kenya Kwanza have talked about, Mr. President, kindly just retire. and leave the country so that we may decide and forge our own way. Do you concur with the doc that a leader's, one of the mandate of a leader is to show the way and lead from the way, along the way?
That is very true. I do agree. But again, when we check on the politics of the country, and as we all see, you know, the president is supposed to be a symbol of national unity. That's the first thing. As a symbol of national unity, you will always try to balance when you are leaving the office. I tell you, if the president today leads his people to Azimio, and Azimio doesn't win, then the president will have lost. Then, when it comes now to the campaigns that we have right now, you can see that if the president is lining to one side of the political divide, it means the president will be biased. And it should not be the case, especially when you are leaving the office. It will be understandable when you are going for a re-election, because that is obvious. But when you are leaving the office, to my thinking, and maybe the way I can advise, is the president would have taken a back seat, but he has his machinery on the ground.
But it will be a tall order, because looking at the president,
yes,
he just cannot leave office just like that, and his party
Definitely. That one is understandable. But now, when we see the president himself campaigning for this, you know what that comes? Number one, it becomes a state project. And even if we run away from it, we call it a state project. And in most cases, when citizens, when voters realize that this is a state project, there are repercussions that usually come out. One, could affect that candidate that the president is supporting. Number two, it could be like there is something the president is hiding that he wants, the person he wants to get to the office, he can be able to go through the leadership and guide the people, because if he hears that maybe somebody else would come, then we'll be able to bring out some of the issues that have been happening in government. So to my advice would have been that the president takes the back seat, but uses his machinery, because he has his machinery on the ground, to pull his people to where he wants. How will it look like when the Kenya Kwanza wins, or whoever wins, that is not the president's choice? Is the president going to hand over power? And how is it going to be? So those are the questions that we keep on asking. So to me, I think it is not right. It should be...
He should take a back seat.
Yeah.
All right. Let's hear it from Eshiwani. You will be vying as an independent candidate. Yes. But do you believe the president has his own right as a voter and as a Kenyan to forge the way, and as a leader, because he is the party leader of Jubilee and he is still the head of state? Should he take a back seat? Or should he tell Kenyans, I believe this is where we should go? Because we have seen all indicators is that Jubilee will be forming an alliance with the like-minded minds like Azimio, and the president we're expecting perhaps he will publicly endorse Raila Odinga. What's your take?
Actually, it's a very catchy situation, 22. As he has put it, I remember when Kibaki was leaving office after serving Kenyans. The deputy president during Kibaki's time was not endorsed by Kibaki. Kibaki let the field be open. Everybody ran for themselves. But behind the scenes, Kibaki knew who he didn't want to be the president. So Kibaki worked against the candidacy of the other people, including his vice president then, to hand over power to the current president. In this situation, as much as we want to try and avoid discussing about it, our government is not functional the way it's supposed to be functional. Our government is being run by few individuals. You can call them cabinet secretary and probably the president, but the larger cabinet secretaries are not actually functional on the day-to-day operations. And a good scenario is we can ask ourselves, when is the last time the cabinet held a meeting to deliberate issues to do with issues affecting the country, even these issues to do with pricing. So it means somebody is running the country. It's not on autopilot, but someone is running it as an individual or as a clique of few people. Where we are is that the president has sensed this. He has his advisors generally, and he has decided, fine, if I'm able to run this country alone without my deputy, without the other cabinet secretaries, they've decided to desert me. Let me then shape the narrative going forward. I'll choose my own candidate, and I'll fight to the last tooth to ensure my preferred candidate wins. But the question that I keep asking myself, my brothers, is this. What if the president comes out publicly and endorses his deputy president as his preferred candidate?
Can that really happen?
This is Kenya. And
I've asked that because all pointers are that Jubilee did endorse that the president, even after leaving office, he will still be the kingpin, he will still be the party's leader. And we have heard that Jubilee is aligning itself with ODM so that they may form a coalition. That is something that has been in the media and has been everywhere. And even the lieutenant yesterday, they talked about forging a working relationship with ODM, which is in Azimio.
Just remember, these members of Kenya Kwanza, who are Jubilee members, have not resigned. So this Jubilee includes them. What if they just decide, okay, we are delegates to this meeting, and we've gone to a meeting, and then the president says, I never said I'm endorsing anybody outside Jubilee. My preferred candidate is this. Will you say that's a state project? And what are the changes that will happen in the scene? Will the deputy president say, I don't want your endorsement?
I can tell you, whoever will like the president to endorse him.
That's quite an
but
interesting
then it will be not right for the president to do that. Even if it is my party leader, it will not be prudent for the president to do that, because it again creates like, okay, the president wants us to go here. Why? Those are Kenyans. You know, the Kenyans will always ask that. And always whoever is supported by the incumbent becomes the project of that incumbent, the project of the government. So if the deputy president, my party leader, is supported by the president himself openly, then definitely my party leader becomes the state project. Yeah.
You know,
Churchill,
the tough choice here is, you know, these are political narratives. We have to admit that it's political narratives. And political narrative, and there's something Eshiwani has asked, which actually makes these appear on the bear that these are political narratives. When everybody would want the system to support them. And so if the system does not support you, find a way of branding that support for your enemy negative. And that is exactly what is happening. Everybody would like the president to support them. But if this support is not coming to me, let me brand whoever being supported in a negative way. So you will most likely realize that, you know, if the president is supporting me, it's a state project. If the president changes his mind and supports you, this is the president's decision. So the narratives totally change. Are you getting?
Yes.
But then the tough thing is, you know, even today, if the president decided to take a back seat, and you know what he says, that, you know, I do not want to publicly influence the public opinion. But I have my own preferred candidate who I'm going to vote for. Let me tell you, still, the tag of the project is not going to go away.
Okay. You're talking about kingpins, you're talking about political alignments.